You did it. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna.
I'm Jocelyn.
And I can't believe she just set a timer for this video and it worked. You are amazing. Amazing.
It looks like we're, wait, if you put your elbow back, it looks like one of those videos where there's two people and they put it into one room.
God, it does. It looks like a split screen.
Oh, hi there. This is my
Sorry. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking.
Can't hug since she's across the screen.
Let's throw a kiss and make it end right there. Sorry. We are so happy that you joined us. We're looking over here. We're so happy that you joined us for the dye class for December. We just put together the most amazing boxes, didn't we?
Yep.
And what was in them? Do you remember?
So, can I tell them the amount too?
Yeah, we put a way more of everything than we said, right?
Mm-hmm. So we got 5 squirt bottles.
5 squirt bottles.
We got
tons of
twine
for when you do. We're going to do a tie-dye technique. There's going to be a couple that I'm going to show. So you're going to want to use that twine.
10 rubber bands and 10 wooden spoons.
Yep, 10. Yep, exactly. So hold on that. So 10 rubber bands. Also possible tie-dye thing with the twine, either or, just so you have
this weird looking pepper shaker and this thing.
Okay, so hold on that. So we put 10 spoons in because you have 10 colors, right, of dye. You've got 10 pigments of dye in these little cases that are screw off. When you are unscrewing your cases, if you are a complete beginner dyer, please make sure that you're wearing your mask. I'm not sure if you have a mask in 2022. I hope so. But wear your mask because this loose powder is dangerous. As soon as your powder pigment hits the water, it's wet, it dissolves, it's not dangerous anymore. But when it's loose and airborne, it is quite dangerous. You don't want it in your lungs. So just put on your mask. We also gave a pair of gloves, right? Mm-hmm. There's a pair of gloves. So
and we put a mask in there.
We put a mask in there, yeah, just in case you don't have a mask.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, when you open these pigments, right, it says on the top of each one what the color is. So each person should have 10 pigments, and it says on the top what the color is. You know, you'll get a feel for it. If Razzle Dazzle is like, if you chose that set, is like a bright pink purple. Most of them are very obvious. Blue gray, Wedgwood blue, that kind of thing. Indigo, cranberry. It really is pretty obvious. Depending on which of the 4 palettes you chose, it'll say, you know, names of the different colors, and you should certainly know what the colors are, right? It'll be pretty intuitive. So you'll open up your pots, and we will show this during the dye class, but what the spoons are for is when the amount of dye in your pots, and every pot is a crazy amount, is a large amount. So you can just use these for learning to dye, right? You don't need the crazy expensive measures. You never need them if you're just dyeing for fun, right? You can just pick a little bit out of here, put it in the water. You can always add more, but you really can't take the color out. So these little spoons are for portioning out dye, putting it in your water. We're going to do all that in just a minute. I just want to let you know what your stuff in the packet is for. So you've got your pots of color, of pigment that are quite loose and dangerous. You've got your spoons. They've got the mask, the gloves, the elastics, the twine, the squirt bottles. Oh, we forgot about this. You've each got a bag of
citric acid.
Yep, that's absolutely as full as it can be and still closed. They open up like this, so we get like good 3-dimensional big pouch of citric acid, right? It's a nice big amount. And it'll say citric acid on it. I'll tell you about that in just a second. And as Joss just pointed out, you also have a vial, and this is of synthropol, and a little pepper shaker. That's just an extra thing that we weren't really planning on, but we have them, and it's Christmas, so we thought, let's give them each a little pepper shaker.
Of course you probably know, but I probably distracted you with a pink mask. Of course they're blue. Mm-hmm. They're blue.
Well, the ones for smaller faces, like juniors, are different colors.
Well, they can be blue.
They can. So, Joss, stay focused. So, when you get your stuff, right, we put in way more stockings than we meant to, right? We put in tons of stockings.
Okay, so with the small stockings, which I will get a little sample of.
Yeah, there's like 2 kinds of stockings, and they all hook, right? They're all nylon and they all hook. They're all Grenfell. Some are long, some are short, some have a big garter top, some don't. So we did like twice as many as we said we were going to do.
All the ones that have the see-through bottom we count as one. It doesn't matter if the entire thing is it.
Yeah.
If there's just a tiny
huge.
bit. But we put them into 2 categories.
Yeah.
We got these, which you'll get a ton of, probably like 16, 15, something like that. But the thick ones, which I don't have a sample on me since we could barely even find one.
I think there's probably 100 strips that you're holding in your hand right now, just with that one stocking. They're really big stockings.
Yep.
So let's tell them what the process is. Yeah, they're very long stockings. Joss doesn't know about these kinds of stockings yet. So
only the ones that you put stuff
right
in.
now we're about to do the dye class. So we're going to show you a bunch of techniques that you might like. So all that we've done so far is taken a bunch of our stockings, put them in a big Tupperware bucket over there with water. They're submerged in water, and we have the Synthropol in the water. We put like 1 drop of Synthropol. This Synthropol is so powerful. You do not want to open this and pour it in water, no matter how much material, wool is in there, stockings, whatever. It is 1 drop to go with all of these stockings. You're not necessarily doing all of the stockings in one go. Never put more than like a drop or less than a drop into your water. It bubbles up crazy, right? And it's a huge waste. Just a tiny bit, a vial this big, this is like several years supply. So be careful about that. The only thing before we started this video that we have going is we have those stockings in water for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. They don't have to be in there for long because they soak fast. So in just a minute, we're going to put the video on pause and we're going to take out a stocking and show you one of our first techniques, right, Joss?
Yeah, but before you continue, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
What is
Synthropol.
Synthropol?
That's a great question. That was not staged either. This is Synthropol. The label wore off when my sweaty, grubby hand touched it 10,000 times. Synthropol is a wetting agent. So Synthropol, you could also use Jet Dry. I prefer Synthropol. It's super powerful. You don't have to worry about which one you're getting. It's a wetting agent. So in other words, not so much with the stockings. The stockings are going to take, right, because they want to. They're very thin. They're very willing. The fiber loves color. It loves attaching to color. But for example, if you were hooking something different or dyeing something different like heavy wool, thick wool, the Synthropol would really wet. You know, the difference between being damp and being soaked. Synthropol really activates the material and gets it very, very ready to accept the color that you're about to dye it in the pan. So it just speeds things up and ensures that the material you're about to dye is going to be very receptive to the color that you are going to introduce it to. Any more questions before we get started?
I have a question that I need to whisper.
Go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so far we have 4 orders.
Yeah, we have 4
They're
that are
all
going out right
different.
now. Yep.
Like,
They're all different, yeah.
well, one of those bags, if you're the lucky winner, you will get a secret little pattern on your thing.
Yeah, you do a secret pattern on one of the bags for one of the lucky people who are mailing out in the morning.
And just to let you know, this is something I don't know what you need to know. Mostly when we put out like designs on the bag,
yes,
it takes like a year for us to put them out.
Yes, but you are very fast.
But you do get a little sneak peek of what's coming in the 2-year future.
It's a design that she's working on. So whoever the lucky person is who has the drawing on your bag, that is straight from Joss's heart to you. Now, should we get going with our dyeing? The night is not getting any younger, is it?
Yes.
We're going to get going with our many techniques. We're going to start our first technique, which is using your favorite technique.
The squirts.
The squirt
I call
bottle.
them the squirts.
The squirts.
So, these things are like hairdresser bottles.
They are hairdresser bottles on Amazon.
So.
Or the hairdresser store.
Like, don't get the ones with the super, super hard plastic, like these kind of squishy ones.
Yeah, don't get the ones with the super hard plastic, right? If you're in a store like the dollar store, the really thick ones, they will implode on themselves if there's any kind of heat involved. So we like the ones that are literally called squirt bottles or hairdresser bottles.
And remember to take the lid off of all your new squirt bottles.
And show why you need to do this.
Because there's a little piece of foil. And if you squeeze, the dye will just get stuck in there and like clump around and won't come out.
Yep.
So I like to use one of these little corn pokers, but you can use like a little knife or a fork.
Yep. So you want to get that silver seal off, or you're not going to be able to squirt.
It would just come right out.
Yep.
Sometimes.
Do a little angle.
A little angle, and then.
Or you can use the tip of a knife, whatever it takes to get that little seal off, right?
Wow, this one's being tricky.
There you go. So that's what the seal looks like. Make sure you get that out before you start madly squirting it, because sooner or later it will give in a fantastic way, if you see what I mean. So you've already got your mask on. I'm going to put my mask on because we are going to open, and I want to remind you there were 4 different color palettes and people chose all 4. So I don't want to get locked into certain color talk conversations, because the 4 palettes, people will have different colors. Whoa. But I happen to be holding in my hand Imperial Blue. When you look at all the different techniques that we're showing right now and you say to yourself, I want to start by doing something with a squirt bottle, or I want to start by doing something with this water immersion or whatever, casserole, then you can decide, I think I want to do something with blue or cranberry or gray. But for now, I'm just showing you the technique. And then later you can decide what colors you want to squirt with, and what colors you want to tie-dye with, and what colors you want to do other techniques with. But at this moment, I'm opening up the dye, right? And this happens to be Imperial Blue, happens to be a Pro Chem dye. I used a lot of Dharma dyes in your kits. No Cushing, just Pro Chem and Dharma. So as soon as that powder is open, it's dangerous, right? I don't have my gloves on yet, and I should, but we at least will have our masks on, right? Because it's airborne. So get your mask up, baby.
Yeah, very dangerous to get in your lungs, even if it, like a tiny speck is like
fly right up in your face and get right in your lungs. So I'm going to kind of
be very bad.
Put a little bit on the edge here and funnel some in there, right?
With your little spoon.
With the little spoon, yeah. Just put a little bit, right? I'm not going to go crazy. And then I'm going to close this up as quickly as I can, because there's no reason to keep open powder open for longer than it needs to be. Now, the kettle is a little bit warm. It can be hot. It can be a little bit warm. I never fill the bottle up completely burning, boiling hot. You don't need to. But I do feel like when you get it started with at least warm water, and by the way, now that it's wet, right, it's not dangerous anymore. It's not airborne. This little stuff on top is. But I never fill it up completely with hot water, because as you can imagine, science experiment, then you put the top on and it wants to explode, right? Because it's like too much pressure, too much heat. So I just fill it up part way, and then I'm going to walk over to the sink and finish filling it up with cold water.
I also want to show why this little corn in the cob tin is the best. Instead of poking it so many times and trying to get the corner, if you angle it, the tiny little knife right there also stabs into it, which makes it way easier to just pull out. Maybe not the easiest, but still easier.
All right. So while she was showing you about the corn thing, I just made another bottle. So we have kind of a purple, a blue, the Imperial Blue. Here's like a pinky orange, right? And here's a turquoise. So let's just take these 4. Just let me move your tea. Do you want to demonstrate squirting? Now, I just want to tell you, I put a white stocking in here, but we had been mixing our paints in here, so it was already dirty, right? This is a white stocking that we just started off with the colors we were just mixing. So be more careful if you want to be real specific, but we're about to saturate the stocking in these colors, right?
So I'm going to start with this one so you can see it better. You see how I'm not like squirting, like squeezing it as hard as I can? You really... There's different consistencies. Some are more watery and some are more thick. The thick ones, you might need to squeeze a tiny bit, but with this little thin one, I just don't even squeeze. I just drizzle it and the little dots come out.
So some are more sort of what's called viscose, right? They have a different viscosity kind of thing, and that means they're a bit thicker in the bottle. So, you figure it out. However you like to squirt, whatever your squirting technique is.
But if you want a blob, I don't know why you would, but just in case you did, then you squeeze it.
Careful, because you forgot to put your gloves on.
Oh, yeah. Hold on, guys.
Okay. Pause.
1.
So, I am going to show you another technique, but first I want to add this nice little bluish purple. Just a tiny bit. This one's like super liquidy. I can I'm not even squeezing it. Look at how much is coming. But it's time for the real technique. If you ever want to do tie-dye, but you don't want to waste your time by getting these rubber bands and tying them all around, it's hard to figure out tie-dye. I figured out a tie-dye that you can do with just squirt bottles. So step 1, choose 1 or 2 colors. If you choose more, it might go into brown. Then you put your
I
bolts
see. You're
in
going to
the
do. So first, let's say the basic thing that she's doing is just squirting with the squirt bottles. This works great. You can flip it over if you want it. Squirt, no rubber bands, just squirting directly onto your stocking. Works great. It soaks up the color. It's beautiful. She's showing you a more advanced technique that she developed herself. What do you call this?
I call this... So there's multiple parts to it. The part where I wrote in, I call it making the dough. But this part,
Okay.
I call it like adding the flour.
Okay, so this is adding the flour to soon be followed by the technique called making the dough.
So I add my first color,
Yep.
and now I'm going to add my second color.
Yep, and you want to be careful not to get too much of a pig's breakfast going.
Because mostly it's kind of annoying when you get on the pan, and then when you try to do your other side, there's colors all over. But this is the opposite. You want to. You take it up and you just mix it all around your colors, and then you do this thing by quickly going like this.
Is that the making the dough?
Yep, this is making the dough.
Nice.
After you've added your flour. It's making a nice purple.
Wow, that's amazingly
Just one
pretty.
thing with this. Do not squeeze it. All the dye will come out and it would turn into a brown
So
when
hold
you
on.
try to pick it
That's
back
the
up.
main tip she's giving you. She actually did make this technique up, and it works particularly well with stockings. We haven't tried it on wool yet, but works remarkably well with stockings. Don't fall off your stool, baby. I love this color. Are you doing more to it?
Yeah, I'm going to
Okay.
add a little more pink.
Just a little bit in one part, because I love that color. So she made up this technique where she's literally mopping it up with that, but her point is, because we've already been there, do not wring it out. As soon as you wring it out, everything turns to like brown or gray, right?
Yeah.
So we found that out the hard way. Just juggle it like gingerly, like she is in her hands, but no wringing out, right? Because then they completely mix. Now, it's worth saying that I have the oven set. This is a casserole dish, and I know that you already know, but I'm going to say it anyway. You never use your food stuff that you're going to eat off of again with any kind of dyeing, right? Super, super, super deadly. So you don't want to do that. These are designated things, even if they're disposable things, things from Goodwill, not quite clean things, who cares, right? As long as they are things you are not going to eat off of again. So these are casserole dishes that we only use to fool around when we're doing our dyeing, right?
Mm-hmm. One thing I forgot to say.
This is gorgeous.
I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
So I said 2 colors, but 3 or more is bad. But you can add 3. Just there's going to be a little spots of brown. And if you add 3, don't do as much as making the dough as I did, because then it will turn very brown. But if you want to add
Too many colors equal brown.
like if I was doing this and you see how I have 2 blues, I can add both of those blues. Maybe even like, I don't know, 4 other blues. Just if it's colors.
All blues would be great.
Yeah.
Like if you got
But
Winter
don't mix
Wonderland, those are like tons of blues. Those would be fantastic. All those different blues. And you can do more than one stocking, right? If you love what you're getting, because you have a ton of extra stockings in your kits. If you like what you're getting, put a whole bunch in, right? Because you'll have tons and you'll be able to do a whole background with it or something.
I think
So,
it's really pretty.
I think it's
Though this-
perfect. Don't do anything else. I love it.
I'm saying, I think the pan's really pretty since if they go like this, it makes like loose cells.
Okay, so
Okay,
just to
that's
let
that.
you know, that's probably enough. Just to let you know, I have the oven set at about between 300 and 320. You know your oven, if it's on the warmer side, it's not the same from oven to oven as you know, right? So our oven is just about true, right? If not a little bit warm, I think. So I have it at the moment it's at 315. So I'm going to put it in. Now, I'm a lot more careful with nylon stockings than I am with wool, because wool is thicker, a bit hardier, right? Stouter. This I'm going to look at because I don't want it to burn. Now, with the stockings, as with anything that you dye, the more wet it is, the more sort of leeway you have. The drier it is, the more likely it is going to glue itself to the pan, burn, melt, whatever, right? So you have to be really careful. It's not that you can't put things into the oven to dye that are on the drier side. It's not that everything has to be soaking wet at all, because on the contrary side of this conversation, right, if it's drier, you get real crisp color definition, but if it's more wet, you get more of a watercolor. So you get colors bleeding, like what Joss was just describing, bleeding into each other. The wetter it is, the less you've wrung out your stockings, the more the colors are going to bleed together. The drier it is, the more definition you have between the colors, but you need to really watch it in the oven because it will want to burn. It's a fine material, right? You can't just let it rip. All you need to do in that oven is let heat set these dyes. All of these chemical dyes are heat set dyes. In other words, if it were summertime or you live somewhere like Australia and it's nice and summery and sunny out, you could put this stuff in a casserole dish or a mason jar and leave it in your driveway. And over the course of a day or two, the sun would set it, right? The heat of the sun would set it. You could also put stuff in the microwave. But if you do that just for 15 seconds, check it. Another 15 seconds, check it. You wrap, when you're doing microwave dyeing, and microwave is your heat source as opposed to an oven, you wrap it with like saran wrap, right? But you have to be careful because everything inside that saran wrap that functions like a snake at that point will melt to the bottom or settle to the bottom and create a pool of possibly brown, right? So you have to be careful with the color bleeding in microwave dyeing. I prefer the oven dyeing. I can see just what's going on. I can open the door every 10 seconds if I need to and just look at it and say it's neither burning, smoking, gluing itself to the pan, or pooling, congealing in like a pool of color underneath it. Now, one of the other things you can think about if you do a lot of dyeing is get one of those sort of baker's trays for cookies that lifts whatever you're dyeing, whether it's nylons or wool, up off the surface of the pan. It's still touching surface, right? But much less surface area to sit on and glue to. If you forget, walk away, take a phone call, go to the bathroom, and you forget and it starts to burn. It's not going to burn and adhere to the bottom of a casserole pan the same way it would stick to, like, for example, a little cookie tray that's like risen up a bit out of the pan. So that's another option if you dye a lot and you worry about setting timers and things. That's another thing, safety, that you can put into place to help you really stay on top of the heat temperature thing inside the oven. So we're going to pause for a minute and then we're going to see how Jocelyn's mush the flour, mop it up. Sorry, what is it called?
So it's called adding the flour, making the dough, but the entire thing is called no rubber band tie-dye.
No rubber band tie-dye.
When you said water and watercolor, that reminded me. I didn't use it, but if you're the type of tie-dye or a wool person who won't, well, you don't have to be, just if you're feeling in the mood for it, you can add a little bit of water to the mixture of the making the dough tie-dye with no fin. And basically, it like mixes the colors, like pre-mixes them a little more. And maybe if you like swoosh the pan around a little, it would just be tiny spots of color, and then the real color mixed together, like most of it. Just in case you want it to mix together a lot and not just mix together while you're making the dough. I prefer to not do water, but sometimes I do a little bit of water just to make it do a little bit of action.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
Who are you? Who are you? She is like so good. It's crazy. So I have to say that was a perfect point to make at that moment. We haven't even discussed this in the past. You could certainly use your hairdresser bottles or an extra one or just a cup of water. What she's saying, pour it in there and add to it. If you feel like you want to break down some of the colors that you put on, it's too strong. If you feel you want to give it more of a watercolor look once you've squirted, absolutely add water then. Absolutely. That'll take a ton of the color away. You could even rinse it out if you decide you hate what you have going on, right? But what you're saying is true. You can absolutely add color, beginning, middle, end. After it's set, right? Not so much luck at that point.
I actually forgot to say the main part of the color bleeding away, mainly it mixing, but also the color will bleed away, just in case, like, what color is this? It's like, I'm pretty sure this
Purple
is like
pop.
Purple pop. If you like, this color seems a little too gluey or a little too
Purpley.
dark and makes it look too much like very dark, kind of like black or dark brown or maybe like a dark blue, because this color kind of looks like a dark blue.
Mm-hmm.
If you add a little, it will show the, like, since it would look like dark blue and you add a little bit, then it will look a little more like purple, and it will make it a lighter color, just in case you don't, like, you want that, like,
Ombre?
or like purple petal. I I just made that up.
Yeah, like a
And,
shaded.
like, because that's normally like very light.
Okay.
This is like, I don't know, what's purple and dark?
Purple and dark purple? Or purple and dark is dark purple?
No, like, what's something that is dark purple?
Oh, like dark grapes, like grapes
Yeah.
for wine.
If this is like grapes and you want it to be like petals, but you don't have that petal
Oh,
color,
I see what you mean.
then you add some water and it will become
Change the
petals.
value of the purple by watering it down.
Mhm.
Now, it's also worth, and we usually do, use a Sharpie to write on our thing what color it is, because you will forget. Even with a few colors, you do forget. So, especially after those grapes for wine. So, I put a Sharpie and I write the name of the color, and then you can use rubbing alcohol later if you run out of it to wipe it off and reuse the bottle. You can absolutely reuse the bottle with soap, squirt it out the nozzle so the nozzle is clean from the inside too. But keep track of your stuff and keep it organized so you don't struggle later. You can also, as something gets partly used up, add more water to it, make it more again, right? If I do that, I put hot water in again just to sort of activate it. In my mind, it works better that way. I don't know if it does, but it always does work. So keep track of your bottles and stay organized. Always leave your lids on, put them somewhere safe, because if these they're real secure. They're real secure. But I keep them in a Tupperware thing because if they fall in storage or they get bumped or the cat jumps up on the shelf, we've been there, it falls over, it'll spill and spray and squirt all over the place. So just keep them somewhere where they're not going to trigger you too much in the future. So should we move on to another technique?
I was going to say a pro tip, but I forgot it.
Okay. You want to give one pro tip before we move on?
I forgot one, but I can tell another one if I can think of one.
Well, think of our pro tips.
Okay.
So we're going to check our casserole dyed squirt bottle technique, right? Let's see if it's ready. Now, I know it's ready because it's been in there for 5 to 10 minutes, right? That's about the max. Now, how do I know it's ready? I can hear it sizzling. It's definitely hot. Obviously, I have silicone gloves on, right? I'm almost burning. It's pretty warm still. But you can see there's a tiny bit of color left, but it's not bleeding color and it's not leaking color, right? This is a good way to tell with nylons.
Not sticking, it's very
It's not
smoothly.
sticking.
It's like going like a
hot.
tortilla in a pan. That's
Absolutely.
exactly what it's like.
Absolutely. So get away. You're making me nervous. So you can tell it's not bleeding color all over the place. It's good. So I can rinse this one out and literally hang it outside, hang it to dry, put it near the radiator, anything. This is the color that she squirted. This is the color that it is. And this is the color that it will stay. So this is ready for you to kind of wring it out with your hands. You can rinse it out in like cold or lukewarm water, right? It's all set, meaning it's been set. And it's not going to shift or change color. This is it. So we can rinse this out, wring it out, put it to dry, and this one is done, ready to be cut up with scissors and to be hooked with. And we'll pause and move. So the next technique we're going to do is like the water immersion, which basically means you're dyeing something in a pan. Now, we've got pans, again, designated pans on the stovetop. They don't need to be at a boil. They just need to be hot water because, of course, the heat is what's going to set the dye. Now, couple of things about immersion dyeing, right? It's so easy. Just think about it like this. I'm gonna get going. I'm gonna show you, right? Just think about it in these two ways. I have my mask on because I'm opening the container, right? This color is blueberry, so this is definitely in the winter wonderland. I'm just gonna put a little bit of it in here. You don't have to stir it. I'm just crazy about the way that I do stuff. So it's already pretty warm in there. It was on for a while. Let's get that going. I've got my wooden spoons. These are great. You can reuse these again and again and again. I'll keep this in here. Let me turn it up a little bit. Looks like the water went down a little bit. Now you can see the color in there is mixing in with the water. Perfect. Now I'm stirring it, creating a bit of a whirlpool, right? So I'm going to show you two different techniques here. So let's pause for a minute. I'm going to get my stockings. All right, great. Oh, I think we just got gas going here. Sorry, keep it on. So we got this one going. Now this, I just put the blue in, right? I just got the stocking out of our Synthropol. We're going to drop this in and I'm going to move it around. Going to move it around. I've got some, this is how I keep my citric acid, right? Your pouch, you sprinkle a little bit on there to sort of encourage it to take the color. And I'm just going to move it around a bit like this. Now, when I'm dyeing, doing immersive dyeing, right, underwater dyeing, you can take this off now because there's no powder anymore. If I stir the water like this, right, with my wool or my nylons in it, if I keep the water moving, I'm going to get this thing a nice, even, solid color. If I were to just take it, dump it the way that it was into the water, walk away, leave it until it was completely dyed, not stirring it, it's going to come out mottled and uneven, which is the look many people want. Many people want. If you want it solid, you need to keep your piece moving. You need to keep the water agitated. You need to keep it hitting evenly. If you want it uneven, mottled, splotchy, marbly, right, then you drop it in, you leave it alone, you walk away, and it will come out very uneven. Having said that, if you were doing something other than stockings, right, if you were doing a big bulky piece of wool or you had tons of stockings in here, sometimes there's so much material in one pot that you can't agitate it and keep it on the move and keep it nice and even so that you end with a solid color. You can't, because physically there's too much material in the vessel. That's why people sometimes use those huge, like sort of hip baths or baby baths and put them over 2 burners, right, or bigger. That's why people go to using those big ones, because they've got a giant thing that they want to dye and they want it to be solid and even color, and it physically is impossible in the pan they're working in, if you see what I mean. So when you're doing your immersion dyeing, it's just a question of, do you want it solid? If you do, sit and work it and stir it and keep it going. If you don't want it solid and you want it to be splotchy, walk away, do other stuff, and come back when it's done. How do you know that it's done? Well, in most cases, you just look at the water, and the water is clear. It basically looks like drinking water, which obviously it isn't, but it looks like it is because all of the water has already struck. It's called striking when the dye hits the thing. That's called striking. All of it has struck the thing that's within, right, the stocking in this case, and it's done. Now, with stockings, there's so little material here that pan might not go clear. But for example, with wool, the pan would go perfectly clear. And you would know that you were done because there's no more dye in the water. It's all then in your wool. Did you want to say something, hon?
Yes, I actually want to say multiple things. Okay. One, I think it's incredible. Just about a pinch, probably even like this much, makes that entire thing. And I wanted to say, you said they use these giant thins.
Yep.
You can also use a potato masher. Probably if it's not like that much.
Absolutely.
But you can use a potato masher and it will mash like pretty good. And for my last thing.
Wait a minute. Let's hold on that because that was a good point. I forgot that we sometimes do use a potato masher that's designated.
That's how I made my pumpkin pie, right?
That's how you made the color that you invented called pumpkin pie. She had the potato masher and she was just going like this, keeping it underwater. Right, so it was kind of a mix. It came out a little bit splotchy, but she was working it. She wasn't stirring it, getting that flow going, keeping it moving, allowing all of the material to strike the water, allowing it all the same access to the dye color, right? She was kind of tamping it like you were doing something out in the garden, in the winter. And for that reason, it came out a bit splotchy and it was exciting. But today we're just using the measuring spoons, but certainly she's absolutely right. Potato masher is another great tool in the dye kitchen.
And for my last thing to say,
yep.
Even if you said you have to wait for the water to be clear, but if you added like that much that you added, but you wanted lighter colors, perhaps this,
yep.
And you could make multiple of them. But if you take it out like this, since you want a blue like this,
yep.
and then you can throw like another color in here, and then another, and then have a bunch of the same color. If you don't want to make a batch and trying to get the right amount to make the right amount.
Yes, but
this you can choose when it's done, just in case.
Yeah.
If you think there's not
if
enough.
this is the color for you, it's going to dry a little bit lighter. And if you know that you want this color just a hair lighter, then that's the color for you. But I want to add to that, Joss, that part of the science of the dye is that the dye that I put in there, which was called bluebird or blueberry, a Dharma dye. The blueberry dye that I put in there is made up of many colors, right? It's not just essence of blueberry. It's made up of many colors. So it looks like there's a little bit of fuchsia in there. There's some blue. There could be some browns. Who knows what? There's other pigments in there besides the blue that we're seeing. So when you put the material, in this case the stocking, into it, the colors that scientifically will strike first, meaning attach to the thing you're dyeing, those have already struck. So if I were to take this out and say, look, this is the color of blueberry that I like, and I put another stocking in there, it's not going to be the same color as this because the colors that struck first have already struck, right? It'll still be similar, but it's not going to be this color. You're not going to be able to get this from this water because some of the dye colors have already exhausted themselves in this stocking. So you have to be careful if you're trying to do repeat of color or if you're trying to do sort of ombre color. You have to remember that the color changes as soon as you put something in it, and some of the color attaches in different order. The pinks and the purples usually want to attach first. So those tones come out first. This is a bit more purple than blue because that's what stuck first, right? So it's just a side note that if you're trying to do matchy-matchies, you want to be careful about the science of the thing, that this isn't just blueberry as a whole, as one color, and you take a little bit out, it's still blueberry. It's a different color now that it's lost this pigment, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. But if you're trying to make like a darker color, then you might even add a little more than you think would be enough, just in case like you use up all the colors but it's not dark enough, just like what we would do. Like
you just gave me a great idea. You just gave me a great idea. Let's pause. So one quick thing over here, I just wanted to let you know, when I say, when we're done, we rinse it out, we shake it out. I rinse it out with water like this, just shaky, rinse it out. Squeeze it out, right? No real color coming off of it. I sometimes use this salad spinner, which is something I get from Amazon. Shake it out, put it in here. You give it a couple of these. It spins around 199 times, and it comes out that much drier, right? So if you dye a lot, you might want to think about getting this. This is a Farberware. It was about $20. These are great, right? It's very, very low amount of work for the amount of dryness it gives you. Now, I just had a great brainstorm over here. So just let's leave that one in there. Now, you can see looking into the pan, there's still plenty of blueberry color in there. I'm going to put another one in just for fun and to make the point that we are never going to get this color out of this water because this guy has leached so much of the blueberry pigment. It doesn't matter how soon after I put this one in. You can see that in terms of tone, these are never going to get to be the same tone. The sort of reddy purple pink colors came out the first time on the first piece. Now, this one will be beautiful blue, but it's not going to be blueberry, right? It's going to be something different. Are these two colors what we call married? Yes, they are, because they have the same colors within them. Not all, but many of them are the same pigments within. So these colors are going to go great together, no matter what you do, right? But they're not the same color. So we had another idea. We're moving on to another technique as quick as that. So what I'm going to do is, sometimes I use something like this, a strainer. Again, designated always. Sometimes a steamer basket, whatever you want, whatever you have that's spare. I'm going to take these out, and Joss, you can move on to our next technique in a second. I'm literally going to do this with it because I want it to be, that didn't work that well because it's still quite, well, actually that's all right. I'm putting them here because you can see they're floating on top a little bit more, right? They're not completely exposed. There's some room on the top there. Or, they're kind of floating, or you can dump some of the water out to make it a lower water level. And I'm going to let you do the squirting. What we're doing is we're squirting using the hairdresser bottles right into the pan. You can also do this technique with your wooden scoops, powder right on top. We'll do that too. We'll do that next. But for now, let's do squirt bottles. I want to just remind you, hold on, Joss, that if you forgot what color you've got, just get a white paper towel. Give it a little squirt.
I
Tiny
thought that
squirt.
was blue.
Nope, this is Purple Pop.
And this.
And this is, I think this is Rhodamine pink. So you just want to do that. Then you know for sure what color that is, because that looks black. Now, Josh, you want to give us a few squirts? And we're not going to agitate it. I'll squirt and you squirt too?
Yeah.
So we're not going to agitate. We're just going to do like this, some squirts on top.
This one's super liquidy.
Not too much. I think stop there, because we still want to have some blueberry. And we're just going to let that sit. I might give it another little hit of citric acid, a little sprinkle.
Do we mix
So
it
it takes,
now,
nope.
Or do we don't?
No, because if you did mix it, watercolory, all one color. If you don't mix it, you'll see what we get, but it's going to be all splotchy, right? If you do mix, watercolor, one color. If you don't mix, splotchy multi, right? Same as immersion dyeing, same thing. But in this case, we introduced colors using our squirt bottles. So let's let this sit for a minute, and we're going to pause after this. We're going to get another stocking going, And we're going to do putting powder right onto the stocking in the pan to look at how that looks. So as you can see, I just dropped into the pan 1 scoop of a very, very, very pale color called Antique Mauve. And you can see it immediately broke without being stirred. It broke into blue, it's disappearing now, blue, pink, and yellow, right? Very, very strong. Just what I want you to do to demonstrate the opposite. I'm not going to stir and agitate. You put a fresh stocking in there, and we're not going to stir it at all. We're going to literally drop it in.
Also, you did notice, well, you probably did, this see-through one was much lighter than the thick version.
It's more sheer,
Hold on,
right? So it's going to hook. This is the opaque part on the top of the leg, but they're going to make beautiful colors all around, and you can hook with the entire thing. So write it right in, right? And I'm just going to do like this.
A little bit of some.
Might not be dark enough, actually, the antique.
Oh, it made a little bubble.
Did it make a little bubble?
It made a little
It's going to pick up some color down there, but what we really want to do, this is a pale color. All that color that broke on the bottom, let's see if any of it's there. No, none of it's really there. It wasn't that much. Just put your mask up for a second, because I'm going to do something naughty. I'm going to do what we were just describing. I should have my mask on, I know. Just sprinkle some on top like this. And let's watch it break. Now you see how that's pink and that's
so
blue?
There's so much color.
Yep, and you see how there's some yellow there?
Why?
Right, so when you don't stir, you get to see the colors break. Only acid dyes break. Only chemicals break. If you get into natural dyeing, those colors don't break, right? Only acids. So this is just an example.
So cool. Wait, what color is that?
This is called Antique Mauve.
Why is there
Oh, I'm
so
sorry.
many
This is
colors?
Mist Gray. This is Mist Gray.
But why is there so many colors?
Because I'm making the point that in every color, there's tons of colors, right? So you have to respect that. You can play with it. You can work it. You can use it to your advantage. But don't let it bite you, right? Don't let it bite you. So you see how many colors that just took? Isn't that crazy on one stocking?
Awesome.
Isn't
That's
it?
supposed to be gray.
Now, let's look at that. Keep it going. Let me get another one. Let me get a completely different. This is forest green.
Forest green. Well, I wonder what...
I'm going to put my mask on.
Maybe you should have time to think first of what you think forest green. Like some of the colors.
Yeah, what do you think are some of the colors
I'm
in forest
thinking
green?
super dark pink. Of course some greens. And maybe like a little bit of blue.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the same thing.
Ooh, yellow instead of pink.
Yeah, there's a
Everything
lot of
else
yellow.
was correct. Ooh, that's pretty nice.
So I'm doing some tap, tap, taps.
That's a big tap, tap, tap. Now it's actually showing its color.
Yeah.
Instead of putting off some little particles. Wait,
So-
I want to find one and see.
Here, you get one more. We'll do one last one with this technique. So you can see the point is when you are using color immersion dyeing still, which means in a pan, but you're using color straight from the pot, powder dry, right onto your material, you can get a lot of different effects. This is what people do who do this very expensive fancy yarn dyeing, right? They're just letting the colors what's called break. Breaking means the colors are landing on the material and they're breaking down into the pigments they're actually made of, right? It's not a unified color.
Use that? So I
If you're
got
very
this hot
careful.
pink. I'm very curious of what it's made of.
Okay, be careful, baby
I can't
lady.
even guess. So I want to do this
Okay, be careful. Careful.
very powdery.
Yeah, careful, careful. Not too much. Just, yeah, tap, tap, tap. Yep.
Okay.
In she goes.
Now I just do a little
Just little small taps.
tap.
Don't even touch it to the water because then it like activates. Just like this, Jess, on the side.
Well, those
Right,
are
and then
really
you can
good.
stir it in.
I want to see the true colors. What do we have there? It's really just a bunch of pinks.
Yeah, this isn't, not every color breaks a ton. Some colors do. There are some colors that are associated with different brands that break a ton. I always say in my dyeing classes with Dharma, some of their colors, I think the craziest ones are Purple Pop and Tobacco Leaf in terms of breaking like crazy, breaking unexpectedly. Pro Chem breaks like crazy, which for me is a good thing because I like to see all those colors come out. I like to use them with rug hooking. It's great to have a variety of colors, but have them still be married together, right?
Can I try one more color?
Yeah, go ahead. Use one more. Do one more. Oh, look at how that's sitting so nice. Should we pause for a minute while she checks her last color?
Yep.
All right.
1.
Here we go.
I thought that black would be cool. Because
Careful.
black is basically every color
Yep.
ever
Yep.
mixed into one.
Let's see.
The
Be
gray
careful.
was rainbow colors.
Okay.
So I think this one will react the same.
Careful, careful. Yep. Sorry.
That's pretty nice.
Can't help myself. Tap, tap, tap.
Okay. Tap.
Whoa.
Oh, whoa, it's super black. Did a little too much. Let's
That's
do a
right. Tap over here.
Tap.
Ooh. Well, there's a lot of purple in it, and I see some blue coming out.
Oh, it's like rainbows.
Now, this is going to be just beautiful to cut up and hook later.
Just beautiful.
Ooh, Joss, that's real pretty. Ooh, leave it. Don't.
Whoa, it's purple.
And if we stirred it, it would all mix together, right? We could also pull it out at this moment, but let's see what it does.
Can I try a little more black? It's super cool.
Oh no, I think that's enough black. Do
Okay.
do like this. You're gonna get more black than we want. But you know what we should do is a little more
You
citric
said
acid.
that
We'll do it
purple
another
was
time,
nice.
baby. We got to do a few more techniques.
Can
Right.
I do one more?
Okay, hurry up. One more.
What's that?
Okay, last
Dragon
one.
fruit. This is dragon fruit.
Do it over the
I
black.
love the color.
Just a
of
little bit, not a
dragon
lot.
fruit.
It's super strong color. This is a Dharma color. Yeah, careful.
So, hold on, a little more. I thought dragon fruit would be cool because of the color. It looks like purple, pink, yellow.
Right over the pan.
That's what I'm pretty sure it was gonna be. There's a lot of black. I'm gonna what?
Go ahead, hurry up,
There we
babe.
go. Okay, let's do a little tap.
Ooh.
Do you see all that color coming
Yeah,
out?
that's crazy.
I'm just gonna throw it.
Do some over here where it's so ugly.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And then you can go in like, sorry, control freak. You can go in like this. To a little Lizzie Borden. A little red on black there. You'll get that when you're older. So that's super cool, isn't it?
Yeah, that's amazing.
So we'll let that sit for a little while.
I'm pretty sure it's
That's
gonna
beautiful.
be pretty black, but also it might like show its true colors and show all the gray with all the rainbows and all the
Absolutely.
others.
We'll pause for a minute. We'll move on to another tech. So we're back to this one, which is the first one. And you can see from the water, it's just about exhausted, right? The water is a little bit purple. That's left over from the blue and from the color that we squirted. But there's not a ton of color left. And this is a great color now. I think we're good to take this out. So we're going to pull this out of the pan. We're going to dump that out, right? Because that's definitely too colorful to dye with again. Sometimes I save in the squirt bottles the water that's left, but that's really not a lot of dye left. That's very little. So this is how this one came out, which is beautiful. I'm going to wring it out and dry it just like the other one. We're going to move on to another technique. So one of the other techniques that's a lot of fun that you can do either in a casserole, I'll show you that, or in a pan, is using tie-dye, elastics, or twine. Now it's totally up to you. Joss, can you wring out one more of the stockings? I'm going to start with this one. So I've just got a stocking that I put in a ball. My gloves aren't quite clean. Just like you were doing tie-dye, you can do this kind of thing with it. Put a few rubber bands in it, right? However you want, just to sort of cordon it off, make it interesting, stop the color from reaching all of it, right? You can put as many bands as you want, or you can go to your twine and do it that way. When I do that, if I'm doing immersion, I'll probably do something like this with my cranberry. Get my scoop again, and just put a little bit in. Put the cranberry in there. This is the a Prochem. Prochem? Yeah. Cranberry. And then I just take my tied up thing, it's got blue on it because my hands are dirty, and I'm going to drop it in. And then the question becomes, as usual, hold on one second, baby.
Okay.
Do I want to stir it to make it one solid color other than the tie-dye parts, or do I want to model it? If I'm going to model it, I'm just going to let it float around like that, right? And it's going to take different colors in different places. I'm just going to let it be on its own, sprinkle a little citric acid on as usual, and I'm going to let it be like that. Now, Jossie, you brought me over some stockings. Another way that you can do this with cleaner hands than mine, which is just unfortunate, is by knotting. You don't have to use twine or elastic bands. You can just do knotting. So you can take your stockings, this is an exceptionally long one, and just put a bunch of knots in it, like this, right? However you want to do it, it's not a science. It's supposed to be very irregular, very neat, lots of crazy knots, double knots, pretzels, whatever you want. But knotting it up like this is another great way to create color variation. And if you think about it, when you're doing knotting techniques or tying techniques like this that are essentially tie-dye techniques, you can do immersion, right? I'm going to show, I'll put this one on the casserole dish and show you that way. But you can use multiple colors again. Do you want to sprinkle directly from your powder pots? Do you want to use your hairdresser bottles? How do you want to introduce the color? Do you want to immersion dye into a pan like this? So let's leave the cranberry going like this, and I'm going to pause and put this on another tray. And you want to squirt this one?
Yeah, I'm going to squirt it.
Great, let's do that now.
Okay, I have got my piece of wool knotted, not tied.
Nylon stocking.
Nylon.
Yeah, it's just all knotted up in the pan.
I'm just gonna call them wool. I don't really know.
And you're gonna do, instead of doing immersion dye, you're gonna do some squirting onto it.
I got a bunch of new squirts, so I don't have to deal with these red, purple, and blues.
Yeah, choose some different colors.
What is this?
Oh, that's wacky. Looks like forest.
Forest. It is forest.
Still forest. See if it really is though. Give a few squirts.
Can I have my little paper towel?
Yes, you can have a paper towel. Absolutely.
Remember, always get a paper towel to test. So here's my paper towel.
Yep.
Put it out like this.
Yep.
Let's see. Is this?
Yeah, that's forest.
Oh, it's a little watery.
It's a little watery.
And there's not a cap. Can I just use this cap?
Yeah. Go ahead. Careful.
Okay. Can put my cap
You don't
on
want
my
you
thing?
reject it? You reject forest? Oh. That's a good way to make it stronger. There might be more at the bottom, huh?
Like it's super.
sank.
It's super wet.
All the sediment sank.
So
The dog and cat are in the video.
it's being very foamy. So I think it's pretty much done,
buttons.
and that's its roll. And you see how much? It's not much thicker, but it's much darker. And I'm gonna do like real tie dye and do little parts at a time. So I think I'm gonna do this little knot right here. I'm doing like real tie dye in, but instead like tie dye in the tie dye.
But you don't want to go, you can do whatever you want. It's your thing. But, when it's tied, the thing is, the color is not going to reach the inside of the tie, right? It's not going to reach all the way. So for that reason alone, you're going to have a lot of inconsistency. And that's the idea of knotting it, isn't it? To make sure that the color reaches some parts and not the others, so you have a variety, kind of a spectrum in every piece.
This is Mermaid's Dream, I think.
Oh, that's a beautiful color. You should use that.
It seems so pretty. Just gonna make sure you don't get it on you, like I just did. Ensure the cap's on good.
So, Joss, I just took this out of the pan. Your pan
my
ran
God,
clear.
It's everywhere.
It sure is. That's just what you don't want to do. So this is the one from the
That's
back that
pretty.
was all the bleeding colors that she did. She's got some solid black areas, some purple, right? That the black didn't stay black. It went to purple. Because you need a lot of black to make it black, and she just put a sprinkle. So this just went to a dark purple, and then she's got some of her mixed colors, as you can see, some of the broken colors where nothing else reached. So this is a really nice one, too. I'll rinse this one out. Joss, you
Did you
finishing
not
up with
notice
that?
how cool that knot looks right now?
It looks exceptionally cool. You want to work that for a minute while we pause?
Is this my forest?
Let's work that for a minute because it's getting late and somebody's got to get to bed.
Yeah.
So while Joss is finishing up her squirting, you can see, now if you're not going to do your mop technique, you can see this kind of Jackson Pollock thing happening that is really beautiful. She's going to get an amazing result. In the meantime, I pulled out, I've got blue on my hands still, I pulled out the cranberry thing, right, the little tie-dye thing from the pot. So let's start unwinding, and immediately you can see, as you unwind, how much of it is undyed, right? You see all the strips where the tie was?
Yeah.
So that's really cool. That's kind of, we get into this sort of Japanese school of fiber and dyeing with this. But yeah, it's cool. So you can take this as extreme as you want, as many different colors. You can see from the way I knotted it, yes, I've got lots of red, I've got lots of uneven color, but I've also still got a lot of white. And if I wanted to be crazy, I could squirt it, or I could put it in a different color in a pan, right? So it would under dye everything that's white. I think I'm probably going to just put it into the purple that was there before, just for fun, just to give it a background color. But at that point, you could do anything with it. This is the cranberry where it came from, and this is actually the black. That's the pan that yielded the black, and you can see the black part struck, and it's only purple now. So I'll let that sit in there, and that will finish up as a very mixed cranberry and the remnants of black background on that stocking. So you can see how you can mix and match these techniques and just do it exactly the way that you want until you end up with something that you are completely in love with and or think that you're going to use, right? So let's see how Joss is doing with her piece
So,
here.
I just want to show you something else. Just in case, you know, when you dye, you do the top and the bottom normally if you want to. But I figured out that you can just go like this. It will get on the front. And I'm not going to make the dough like boom, boom, boom. I might just a little bit and then look at it. And then maybe if I want more, I can mop it up a little more. Oops. What is this? This is something about mushrooms. Make sure that this thing sometimes. Oh. Okay. And also, one of the colors I just used, it's this. I'm pretty sure there's a plus on it, which must mean there's more colors than just one.
Yeah, maybe. But why don't you just, oh, Joss, that's so pretty. Leave it. I love it just the way it is.
Hold on, I still need to do the little
Do one last one, and then we're going to put it back in the oven. Remember, with the nylons going in the oven, especially just one like this, a little solo one, I'm going to keep it between 300, maybe 315. You're doing a little bit of moppings on the back, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Just not squeezing it. Mopping it, but not squeezing it. This one is going to be gorgeous. I'm going to keep it in there for 5 to 10 minutes. I'm going to be peeking at it after the 5-minute mark. I'm going to be shaking the pan around the way I did last time to make sure it's not sticking, that it's not glued. And we're going to pause for a second, and I'm going to show you a couple of ideas for mason jar dyeing. So when we talk about mason jar, there's so many ways that you can use mason jars to work on dyeing. One of the ways that you see the most often, right? This isn't an official one. This is one of the play ones Joss has. But I'm going to show you the idea for using a mason jar. There's a couple things you can do. One thing that people do is fill up a mason jar with color, the dye the way that they like it according to the recipe, and then, like we did earlier, either on top of immersion dyeing in the pan or in the casserole dish, spoon out amounts of color and then spot drop it onto your material, right? Just spooning and dropping it like sauce at dinner. So that's one thing you can do with the dye, is just use it to spoon like ragu sauce onto your pasta. The other thing that you can do is you can layer up. So for example, if I pop one of the stockings in there, I'm going to put my mask back on, and then I put in some, for example, this color is called Lime Pop. Some of you have this. The people that got New Year's Eve have this. You can sprinkle in some of this, or you could spoon from the pan, right? Equally, you could spoon. I'm going to just do that. I'm going to show you that just as an example. We don't need to go crazy, but if I were just to spoon a little bit, that's not even really going to catch anything, is it? I can't really get the angle. Right? If I were just going to do some spoons like that, but with a better spoon, I could just get some color mixed that way. Layer it up like this. Put the next one in there, right on top, like a little layer cake, right? And then maybe I take out my next color. Done with the Lime Pop, moving on to Radioactive's really close. Let's move on to Glacier Blue. Glacier Blue, the people who got the Winter Wonderland, I think, have Glacier Blue. It's a nice light color, right? This kind of thing. Now, if we pause for a minute, so you can see once you've got some colors in there, I have two very light colors, but you can start pouring, and there's a little bit of lime there, and then it goes up to the Glacier Blue, and I could leave it like this. I could even add another stocking. I could add more color on top. No matter, how you want to introduce color, you can add some more color on top. If you're adding more water, right, you're getting more mixing, more watercolor, and then you can kind of see the water coming down. Right now we've got the 3 colors going. So should we pause? So I don't know if you can see this. The mason jar, the way it's turning out, is so cool. If it were summer, again, this would be the perfect time to put a mason jar like in the driveway. Let the sun go for it. You can, otherwise you need to put hot water in it because you need it to set, right? So I've got layers of color here, but some people like to leave the color if they're doing sun setting, right? Like using the sun to set the color with the heat. You would leave this for days, right? And watch. You can see how with this technique, I've got 3 or 4 pairs of stockings, And I've got the lime pop, I've got the glacier blue, and then it goes to the purple, which changes color because it's mixing with the blue. So you can see how you've got a beautiful kind of a layer cake going with this technique. That's another nice thing you can do if you have, you know, some people find those giant mason jars. You could get with nylons, with stockings, many stockings in there, and layer it up, right? So you would get a completely unknown, huge question mark of a product at the end of it. Now, let's pause for a second. So just to recap what we did tonight, I've got, when you do the mason jar thing, another way that you can heat it is to put the jar into a strainer or a steamer basket that's not touching the water. Steam is just coming up to set it. So I've got it here, setting with heat this way, right, inside the strainer or steamer basket. Meanwhile, Joss, let's look at some of the things that we did tonight. We did such a good job. This was the last piece you did that I hadn't untied yet.
I'm excited.
I know, it's super pretty. All of these different twists and turns here, right? You can see all these little patches where it didn't color. Super pretty. So there's lots of knots here, and it's still a little bit wet. So we're going to put that through the salad spinner. But wow, Joss, you did a nice job.
It's awesome.
It is awesome. Buttons is licking me. Hey, baby. So that's a really cool, that's a bit of a patriotic one. Look at those nice colors you got though, Joss.
That's really nice.
It really is. That's super pretty. And then this is the one that we did with the tie-dye red, and then I dropped it in the leftover black, right? Because it was mostly purple at that point. That's this one here. So you can see how that's going to be a super fun buddy to play with. This is the black one that you dropped all of the powder dye right into. We were doing the immersion dyeing.
You can see some color right there.
Absolutely. You can see lots of crazy popping here. So you sprinkle dry powder right.
Over there.
Yeah, there's lots of crazy pops. That was fun. And then we did solid too. We did our solid blueberry. Remember, we got totally different colors, putting the blueberry in at different times. Both blueberry, but this one I think went first and took most of the pinks, and this one went in later. And the water looked just as dark, but there was different colors left in the water. So that was just our basic dyeing. And then this is the one you did at the beginning with the squirt bottles.
That's definitely my favorite.
Me too. So we did a lot with squirt bottles. The one technique that we didn't show because it was real repetitive was the salt shaker or the pepper shaker. So you can get a box of these little ones and put different dry powders in so that instead of scooping out of your pots, right, out of your pots of dry powder, you can sprinkle. If you prefer to sprinkle more in the style of doing the hairdresser bottle, but you're using the dry pigment instead of the squirt pigment. So that's a possibility too with these little guys. Squirt right into the pan, squirt right into the casserole dish, whatever you want, but just another way to apply color, right? That's what we did. That's what we could do with that. This was just a bonus because we realized we had a ton. The mason jar is heating up in the steamer thing, but we're ready for bed. We are done, man. That was fun though, wasn't it?
It is like 10:30 and I have a dog on my lap and I think we should go up.
I think so too. Do you want to say goodnight to everybody? Say, have fun dyeing. I hope you have fun with your stockings. We filled up your box with stockings. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care or something like that. I hope you have so much fun with your materials, your colors. You do a ton of experimenting, tons of knotting and tying and dyeing and stirring.
And remember,
and sprinkling and squirting.
Watch out for the little design on one of the bags. Good night, Button. Say good night.
Good night, everybody. Happy dyeing with an E.